Hello all and welcome to my YouTube channel. As we have already discussed excretory system and its role in osmoregulation and urine formation, today we will discuss about renin angiotensin aldosterone system, that is also called as RAS, RAAS. As you all know that kidneys, they are very important organ of our system, of our basically excretory system, and they helps in long term regulation of arterial pressure, and they operate hemodynamic mechanism for maintaining this arterial blood pressure. Suppose when arterial blood pressure it is reduced or it decreases, kidneys helps in maintaining blood pressure, as they first try to reduce urine output, and it is done by two main mechanisms: first by decreased ultrafiltration and second by increased selective reabsorption. Decreased ultrafiltration is concerned with reduced amount of or volume of nephric filtrate formation from the blood, and this nephric filtrate is further selectively reabsorbed from tubular lumen of nephrons. If kidney is doing so much, then why our body feel the need of this renin angiotensin aldosterone system? And moreover, nature has placed the different components of this RAS system in our body so beautifully, and they are working in an excellent way to bring about a state of homeostasis through osmoregulation. And ultimately, this is the task of or the main duty of RAS system, to maintain blood volume and blood pressure. Renin angiotensin aldosterone system involve the number of organs, number of body sites, and number of organic molecules which collectively form an integrated and a coordinating system that ultimately bring about a homeostatic environment with respect to blood volume and blood pressure. So a here main organs and sites they involve: first it is kidney itself that play an important role, and there is role of liver, it is liver, and here comes also the role of our main circulatory system, and this is also aided by pulmonary circulation. This is pulmonary circulation, this is main circulation, and along with this it also involve the role of adrenal cortex. So this is adrenal gland, it is an endocrine gland, and apart from this, here central nervous system also play an important role to regulate the functioning of these different sites as a single unit. So starting from this system, when there is loss of blood, when there is loss of blood, the blood volume and blood pressure they are also altered, and the blood which is being carried to the kidney, it is also reduced. So here it is reduced blood perfusion or reduced blood volume that is being supplied to the kidney, and subsequently kidney release a hormone like enzyme that is called as renin into main circulation. It is again sent back, so blood is coming to the kidney, and this renin is released through blood to the main circulation. And at in the meantime, liver also It is continuously, actually it is continuously synthesizing and secreting another protein that is called as angiotensinogen, and here they encounter this renin. So this is starting point of renin angiotensinogen system, but how it is further carried out by heart and lungs and adrenal gland and central nervous system, it is being discussed later in this lecture. But before, we have to focus on kidneys, how renin is released. So kidneys, they have large number of structural and functional units, and these are collectively called as nephrons. And on an average, a single kidney has around 1 million nephrons, which are also called as uriniferous tubules. Now, this is the structure of nephron, which play a critical role, an important role for synthesis and secretion of renin into the main blood circulation. So here there is a structural organization, and this structural organization is called as juxtaglomerular apparatus. So it is called as juxtaglomerular apparatus. For this, I have to first draw the diagram of a nephron, and then I will discuss about this juxtaglomerular apparatus. So this is a rough diagram of a nephron. Here, this is called as glomerulus. This is called as afferent arteriole, and here it is efferent arteriole. So blood is coming to the kidney through this afferent arteriole, and here it is glomerulus, from where blood is filtered and nephric filtrate is formed. But here in this nephron, there are certain unique structural modifications which are observed in all nephrons. And here, as in these blood vessels, they have smooth muscle types. They have smooth muscles. These are smooth muscles. But as soon as these blood vessels, apparent arterioles, they approaches this glomerulus region, so these smooth muscles, they are being modified. They are modified smooth muscles, which has large number of granules, and they are basically modified smooth muscles. And these modified smooth muscles are also called as Parkinson's. Similarly, and these are supposed to release, they are supposed to release renin into the this bloodstream. Actually, what happen when there is low blood volume or low blood pressure, these are stimulated to release this renin from these modified smooth muscle, that is focusing into bloodstream, and subsequently it is carried out by this. Now what happen when low blood volume is coming to the glomerulus region? Subsequently nephric filtrate, which is normally formed, it is also reduced one, and subsequently more and more electrolytes, for example 65% of sodium ions and 65% of water, they are conserved from proximal convoluted tubule into main blood circulation. So this is main blood circulation, and here we know that this region is this is descending limb of loop of Henle. It is more permeable to water, so here water is also conserved. So the nephric filtrate which is being carried out by the tubule or the lumen of loop of Henle when it approaches thick limb, and here you all know that there are sodium potassium ATPase pumps. They also absorb or reabsorb these sodium ions from nephric filtrate into the interstitium, and here the medullary gradient of electrolytes, that is the concentration, it goes on increasing, and this is collectively called as medullary gradient. It is established by these two events: absorption of water from descending limb of loop of Henle, and this is sodium ions which are being actively absorbed from nephric filtrate into the interstitium. And here it comes the distal part of this thick limb of loop of Henle, and here anterior most part of this distal convoluted tubule. Now two regions regions they have specific cell types, and these cell types they are dark colored cells, and they form a patch like structure. That's why these cells are also called as macula densa cells, or they are also called as dark cells. These cells are modified epithelial cells of this tract of nephron, that is especially the distal region of thick limb of loop of Henle and anterior most part of DCT. This is anterior most region of DCT, and it is loop of Henle's part. So here these cells they are found. Basically these cells they have receptor types which sense sodium ions, and these cells senses sodium ions. As you know, the nephric filtrate 65% of sodium ions which are reabsorbed in its PCT part from reduced nephric filtrate. As you know that blood volume is reduced, so subsequently the sodium ions which are also again reabsorbed from this thick limb of loop of Henle, we have left with minimum number of minimum number of electrolytes, that is sodium ions, and these decreased concentration of sodium ions they are detected by these receptors which are found on the luminal side of these macula densa cells, and subsequently these cells they form a complex, they form a complex with, this is a region of connective tissue, connective tissue cells, and subsequently when low sodium ion concentration are received by these macular densa cells, they secrete prostaglandins, they secrete prostaglandins, and these prostaglandins are carried from through these connective tissue cells, and they are subsequently received by these modified smooth muscles or pocusins, and subsequently they stimulate these to release more and more amount of this renin into blood circulation, and collectively the complex of these modified smooth muscles, connective tissue cells and macula densa cells, they collectively form juxtaglomerular apparatus. Now its signal is when low BP or low blood volume, it trigger modified smooth muscles to release renin, but the renin release it is of very small amount, and when reduced blood blood approaches glomerulus region, here reduced nephric filtrate is formed. Subsequently, reduced amount of sodium ions they are sensed by the macula densa cells, and they release prostaglandins, which ultimately triggers more and more release of renin from modified smooth muscles into the main circulation. And here, main circulation is now supplied by higher concentration of renin. Here, strictly talking about the role of these smooth muscles and these macular cells, basically smooth muscles, they have type of receptors which sense pressure, and they are called as baroreceptors. And these macular cells, they sense sodium ions, and they have these chemoreceptors. They have chemoreceptors. So coming to main circulation, suppose this is the whole arrangement. I have drawn this structure. This is main circulation, kidney, liver. This is pulmonary circulation that involve lungs, and this is adrenal gland. Suppose when there is loss of water and we have low blood volume, this trigger kidney to secrete, to synthesize and secrete more and more amount of renin, which is basically a type of endocrine signal, and it has enzymatic activity. It is released into main circulation from the kidney. And here in main circulation, liver also and continuously synthesize and secrete another type of protein that is called as angiotensinogen. And when this angiotensinogen approaches renin, it is converted immediately into angiotensin 1. It is angiotensin 1. So this is main function of renin, to convert this zymogen form of tensinogen into angiotensin 1. And subsequently, this angiotensin 1, it is carried by blood circulation through heart into lungs. And here lungs, they have capillaries, and these capillaries, they are found in close proximity with, these are alveoli. And these capillaries, they have specific type of enzymatic activity associated with these endothelial cells. Actually, what happen, the enzymes, they are basically restricted to the cytoplasmic side of cell, but here these endothelial cells, they have ectoenzyme. They have ectoenzyme, means they are expressed on luminal side of these endothelial cells. This is expressed everywhere in the capillaries or the blood vessels which surround alveoli. And when blood which is having angiotensin 1 is received, or it approaches these ectoenzyme containing, this ectoenzyme, it is basically called as angiotensin 1 converting enzyme, ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. And this convert this angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. So this is their main role. And apart from this role, and this angiotensin 2, it has major role as a potent vasoconstrictor, means it basically increases blood pressure. But at the same time, the gut walls and the mast cells, they also secrete a hormone that is called as bradykinin, and this has reverse role to that of angiotensin 1, and it acts as a vasodilator, and it is also released into main circulation. So these ACE enzyme, they have dual function. First, they convert angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, and secondly, they denature and they degrade this bradykinin, and subsequently it is degraded, and subsequently its vasodilation role, it is blocked. So it has two functions. First, it convert angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, which is a strong vasoconstrictor, and second, it degrade bradykinin, which is released from gut walls and mast cells and act as a vasodilator, and it can ultimately reduce more blood pressure, and subsequently it can prove lethal to the body. So it is degraded by these ecto expressed enzymes when blood it is carried toward lungs. And this angiotensin 2, it act as a vasoconstrictor not only on arteries, but it also includes both arteries and veins, and subsequently it reduces the overall surface area of the main circulatory system, and blood pressure rises or it increases and try to attain a normal range, but that is not sufficient, and it is also temporary one, and that's why it should opt for a more permanent and stable mechanism. So this, through main blood circulation, it approaches adrenal cortex, and here it has the receptor on cytosol aldosterone. It crosses the cells of adrenal cortex, and they have cytosolic receptors, and ultimately they synthesizes and secretes large amount of another hormone. It is called as aldosterone, and it is ultimately released into main bloodstream, and from where it is carried to the kidney, and there in the kidney it causes reabsorption of reabsorption of sodium ions. Basically it is a mineralocorticoid, and these reabsorption of sodium ions, when it is triggered by aldosterone hormone, it ultimately attract more water towards interstitium from primary nephric filtrate, and this is again reabsorbed back into the blood, and blood volume and blood pressure, they are maintained to a normal range. But in the meantime, this aldosterone, it is also carried out by blood circulation to the hypothalamus, where it activates, first it activates thirst center, it activate thirst centers and trigger drinking of more and more water, that is enhances intake of water. And secondly, in the hypothalamus, this aldosterone, it also trigger supraoptic nuclei. As you all know, this supraoptic nuclei, it is concerned with secretion of which hormone, that is ADH. It is also called as anti diuretic hormone. It is also called as anti-diuretic hormone. And this ADH hormone, it helps in reabsorption of water. It helps in reabsorption of water. and ultimately blood volume and blood pressure is increased, and it has role on kidneys. But here main important role is played by aldosterone hormone in the kidneys, that how it helps in reabsorption of sodium ions and ultimately water, which is also triggered by antidiuretic hormone. Distal convoluted tubule, they have cell types, specific cell types which are responsive to the aldosterone hormones, and these cell types, they are basically called as principal cells. So these are here, they are principal cells, principal cells. And you can see from the diagram here, the antidiuretic hormones, their receptors are expressed in conditional or specific cases, and it is released from supraoptic nuclei under the influence of aldosterone hormone, and they cause more and more absorption of water into the interstitium. But aldosterone, they have receptor types on principal cells, which are basically located on distal convoluted tubule. These principal cells, they have two dual functions with respect to aldosterone. As aldosterone, they have cytosolic receptors, they bind with these receptors on its cytosolic side, and subsequently it cause expression of sodium potassium ATPase pump on basolateral side. This is expression of sodium potassium ATPase pump, and subsequently on the other side they have just sodium channels. This is towards luminal side and this is towards basolateral side. Under the influence of aldosterone hormone, these sodium potassium ATPase pump and these sodium channels, they are expressed, and this cause more reabsorption of sodium ions from nephric filtrate into the cytosol, and subsequently here from here it is removed and it is released into the interstitium, and thus it cause conservation of sodium ions from nephric filtrate, otherwise they are going to form final urine. So this aldosterone try to conserve these sodium ions into the interstitium and subsequently into the bloodstream, and along with this huge large amount of water is also reabsorbed back into the interstitium, and subsequently here they are again reabsorbed back into main blood circulation, and ultimately blood volume it is increased, and it is maintained to establish normal blood pressure range. So this is all about renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system, where interplay of renin from kidney and angiotensin from liver, and role of this angiotensin converting enzyme, which helps in conversion of angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, and ultimately they stimulate adrenal gland to synthesize and secrete aldosterone into the main circulation, and further it trigger the reabsorption of sodium ions in the kidneys, and also trigger your thirst centers, and intake of water it is enhanced, and subsequently they also release or stimulate supraoptic nuclei to secrete large amount of antidiuretic hormone that helps in conservation or reabsorption of water, and ultimately normal blood volume or blood pressure is maintained. So this is how renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system it operates, and this operation it is in relation with kidneys, helps in osmoregulation as well as in homeostasis. If you like my video, you can share it, comment on it, and can subscribe my YouTube channel for many more such videos. Thank you.